Hello everyone, my name is Cassandra Brown, and today I will be presenting my research on autism and the role of parents and family, with a focus on how parental stress and resilience shape the social development of children with autism spectrum disorder. This project gave me a much deeper understanding of how caregiver emotional well-being affects the child's developmental experience, especially in those early and critical years. Throughout this presentation, I'll walk you through the research supporting and opposing my thesis, explain the real-world implications, share my personal reflection, and end with a conclusion that ties everything together. When we talk about autism, most conversations focus on the child, their communication differences, their sensory needs, or their interventions they might benefit from. But what we often overlook is the family system surrounding that child. Parents of children with ASD often carry a substantial emotional load. They are navigating doctor appointments, school accommodations, therapy schedules, and behavioral challenges, all while trying to manage their own mental and emotional well-being. This is one of the reasons I chose this topic. I wanted to understand not just how children develop socially, but how the parents' emotional health influences those outcomes. The thesis guiding this presentation is comparing families with high versus low parental stress reveals that children of resilient parents demonstrate stronger social communication and peer relationship skills, emphasizing the critical role of caregiver emotional well-being in promoting positive social development among children with autism spectrum disorder. In other words, parent well-being doesn't just affect the parent, it plays an active role in shaping how children learn to communicate, engage with peers, and understand the social world. To begin, with the research supporting this thesis, one of the strongest studies comes from Rodriguez and colleagues in 2019. They conducted a longitudinal study examining the relationship between parenting stress and child behavior over time. What they found was significant. Higher parental stress predicted an increase in behavioral problems, including lower social engagement. This wasn't just a surface level connection. Stress affected how parents interacted with their children, often leading to more directive, less responsive communication. And for children with autism who rely heavily on modeling and guided practice to build social skills, this reduction in responsive interaction can limit their opportunities to learn and practice social communication. This study strongly supports the idea that parental well-being influences children's social development in meaningful, measurable ways. Another study that supports the thesis is by Miranda and colleagues, also published in 2019. Their research looked at the coping strategies mothers used when raising children with ASD. They found that parents who used what they called active engagement coping, things like problem solving, seeking support, or using emotional regulation strategies, had significantly lower stress levels. These parents, despite the challenges they faced, were more emotionally available. As a result, they often provided warmer, more consistent social interactions for their children. In contrast, parents who were experiencing high stress and who didn't have adaptive coping strategies were more vulnerable to burnout, fatigue, and emotional withdrawal. This shows that resilience is not something parents either have or don't have, it's a skill that can be strengthened. And when it is strengthened, it directly supports children's social learning. A third study supporting the thesis comes from Leicester and colleagues in 2021, who evaluated the Early Start Denver model, an early intervention for young children with ASD. What makes their findings compelling is the bidirectional nature of the results. Children in the study showed improvements in social communication, but the benefits didn't end there. As the children improved, maternal stress levels actually decreased. This means that children's progress supports parental well-being, and improved parental well-being then reinforces the home environment, creating a kind of positive feedback loop. This reciprocal nature of growth highlights how tightly connected parent and child functioning truly are. Altogether, these three studies provide strong evidence that parental stress and resilience meaningfully shaped social outcomes for children with ASD. Even though there's strong evidence supporting the thesis, it's important to examine research that challenges or complicates it. Dean and Chang's 2021 systematic review looked at school-based social skills interventions delivered in inclusive classroom settings. They found that children made substantial improvements in social communication and peer interaction even when parents weren't directly involved. What this tells us is that children can develop social skills not only through family interactions but also through structured school environments, especially when mediated techniques are used. This challenges the idea that parent emotional well-being is the primary driver of social development. A similar conclusion comes from a 2023 randomized controlled trial by Friedel and colleagues, where they tested a school-based program called School Lawn Contact. This program was run entirely in the school environment and didn't rely heavily on parent involvement. The results showed improvements in social behaviors and peer engagement. Importantly, these improvements occurred even when parents were highly stressed or had limited capacity to support social skill building at home. This suggests that in some cases, school-based programs can reduce the burden on families and still offer meaningful social development opportunities. Further support for this perspective comes from Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration 2024 guidelines, which recommend integrating behavioral health services directly within schools and pediatric clinics. Their findings highlight that delivering services in structured settings help children make gains even when parents are overwhelmed. So while paternal well-being remains important, this body of research shows that children can still grow socially through systematic professional supports. When we put all the research together, both supporting and opposing, a very practical message emerges. The supporting research highlights how vital caregiver emotional well-being is. Parents who manage stress well and demonstrate resilience create environments rich in social learning opportunities. This might include more reciprocal interactions, more patience during communication challenges, or simply a greater capacity to reinforce social behaviors. Meanwhile, the opposing research demonstrates that children also benefit from external systems, especially schools, peer groups, and integrated service models. These systems can provide structured opportunities for social interaction that don't depend on a parent's emotional state. For families, the real-world implication is that supports need to be multi-layered. Parents benefit from resources like the Autism Society of America, Parent to Parent USA, and as well as the National Autistic Society and the ARC, organizations that provide guidance, emotional support, and peer networks to reduce isolation. At the same time, schools and clinics should continue offering interventions that relieve pressure from caregivers and provide children with consistent social opportunities. Taken together, these levels of support, home, school, and community, create the strongest foundation for social development in children with ASD. Completing this research really changed how I understand the relationship between caregiver well-being and child development. I think I originally assumed parental stress was just an unfortunate side effect of raising a child with autism, but the research shows it's much more dynamic and influential than that. A parent's emotional health directly shapes the kinds of social and learning opportunities their child experiences daily. I also found myself gaining a lot of empathy for caregivers. Resilience isn't something people magically have, it's something they build. And they build it through support, connection, education, and sometimes trial and error. I came to appreciate how powerful emotional support networks and community resources can be in helping parents manage the weight of their responsibilities. Another thing that surprised me was how much children can benefit from school-based and clinic-based interventions, even when parents are overwhelmed. This made me realize that supporting children with autism truly requires collaboration across environments, not just at home, but across entire systems. In conclusion, the research overall supports the thesis that children of resilient parents often show stronger social communication and peer relationship skills. The emotional climate of the home plays a meaningful role in shaping social development. However, the research also reminds us that children can grow socially through multiple pathways. When parents are stressed or overwhelmed, school-based programs, peer supports, and community interventions can still promote meaningful social growth. Looking ahead, I believe a combined approach is essential. Families need access to emotional support networks, training for coping and resilience, and community-based resources. Schools and clinics should work alongside families, not in place of them, to create environments where children with autism can thrive. By strengthening systems at every level, family, school, and community, we create a future where children with autism have the tools they need for social connection and caregivers have the support they deserve. Thank you.